chill of a November night settled over Stamford Bridge, sharp as steel under the stadium lights. Every face, every eye in the arena was riveted on the pitch, where the final seconds of the match ticked away. The roar of the fans was an ocean of sound, swelling and crashing in waves, but for a moment, silence fell a collective gasp as Bruno Fernandes drew back his leg, aiming for glory. Bruno's eyes were locked on the goal. He'd been waiting, timing his run, anticipating that ball like a predator stalking its prey. And then, finally, it came. A perfect cross, sailing through the air, spinning with the weight of hope, expectation, and thousands of prayers. Ruud van Nistelrooy watched from the sidelines, arms folded, every muscle in his body tense. There was a flicker of recognition in his gaze. He'd been in this exact spot so many times before, his career carved from moments just like this one. It was like seeing his younger self in Bruno, a hungry striker, eyes wide with the belief that this, finally, was his moment. The ball met Bruno's foot with a resounding thud, and for a split second, time froze. Ruud's heart pounded against his ribs, his fingers tightening into fists. It was an unspoken connection. A bridge between two generations of players who knew what it meant to carry the hopes of millions on their shoulders. The shot left Bruno's foot, arcing through the air, destined for the top corner. But then in the blink of an eye, destiny swerved. The ball sailed just wide, kissing the outside of the post before thudding harmlessly into the advertising boards. A gasp rose from the crowd, a sound so thick with disappointment it was almost tangible. Bruno dropped to his knees, head in his hands, disbelief written across his face. He knew how close he'd come, how that single shot might have changed everything. His teammates, arms lifted in expectation, lowered them slowly, a collective sigh deflating the entire squad. Ruud's eyes didn't leave Bruno. He saw the young midfielder's heart break as if it were his own, feeling the familiar pang of regret, of what-if moments that haunted players long after the final whistle. But there was more to his expression than mere disappointment. Behind those steely eyes was something softer, a glimmer of understanding. This was football, a game of inches, a game of moments where glory and despair walked hand in hand. As the players trudged back to their positions, Ruud took a deep breath, stepping back to give his players space. He knew that this was Bruno's burden to bear, a weight that would sit heavy on his shoulders, and yet he couldn't let him bear it alone. Not tonight. The whistle blew, ending the match, sealing the night's heartbreak in finality. Players from both sides shook hands, some exchanging quiet words, others heading straight down the tunnel. But Ruud waited, his eyes trained on Bruno, who lingered near the goal, hands still on his head, as if willing the post to yield, to shift, to rewrite the story of this night. Walking over, Ruud put a hand on Bruno's shoulder, pulling him into a half embrace. The words he spoke were quiet, just between them, but the meaning was clear. There was a promise in Ruud's eyes, a reminder of what it meant to wear this badge, to carry the weight of missed chances, but also to rise from them. They walked back to the tunnel side by side, a mentor and his player, bound by the relentless drive to fight, to come back, and to keep believing. For Ruud, tonight's miss was just a chapter, a single page, in a book that was far from finished. Ruud van Nistelrooy is convinced that some of the signings, Manuel Ugarte and Joshua Zirkzee, will come good at Manchester United after slow starts. Ugarte arrived from Paris Saint-Germain for a fee which could rise to £50 million after a prolonged pursuit in the summer transfer window. Zirkzee cost £36 million from Bologna and was brought in to help ease the load on Rasmus Højlund up front. Neither player has lived up to their billing yet, with Ugarte only recently becoming a regular starter in midfield, while Zirkzee hasn't scored since netting on his debut in the first game of the season. Their struggles played a part in Erik ten Hag getting sacked on Monday following a miserable start to the season. Van Nistelrooy has taken over as interim manager and got off to a good start by overseeing a thumping 5-2 win over Leicester on Wednesday. He will take charge against Chelsea on Sunday before handing over the reins to Ruben Amorim when he arrives on November 11th, and is sure that Ugarte will become a key performer under the new boss. "I'm convinced about Manuel that he will be a great player for United," Van Nistelrooy said. "He had a very good performance yesterday, and against Fenerbahce he had a good performance. I think, of course, getting players in an early conclusion, players who are here for 2 or 3 months, we should be careful with that, I think. It quote as a great signing. He's a very good player, professional. He has very specific qualities in midfield when he gets in between players and recover the ball for us to get us in attacking positions. Also on the ball, very decent, so I mean he will be a very good player for this club." Ugarte has only started one Premier League game for United so far, with niggling injuries and long trips to South America to play for Uruguay posing problems. The output of Xerxes is perhaps more worrying, with the 23-year-old on a 13-game goalless streak. Van Nistelrooy scored 150 goals in 219 appearances for United, so is well placed to judge Xerxes. Josh is a similar answer to Manuel Ugarte's situation. Josh came in and he's a young player with a lot of potential, he said. He is a typical number 9 in the sense that his hold-up play is very good. He's very strong in combination play. He's a different type than Rasmus, because Rasmus is more of a number 9 who plays high up the pitch and he's getting in the back of defenders. Josh is more of a player who is coming toward the ball and gets the team playing. In the Crystal Palace game, I thought he was excellent and showed one of his best performances. Another one with a lot of talent. He's a good age and has a lot of potential to develop. We have to look after him, give him time, because he will get better and will be a very good player. Manchester United have got their man, with Sporting CP manager Ruben Amorim set to replace the recently departed Erik ten Hag from November 1. The Dutchman, 54, had come under increasing pressure at Old Trafford following a drop-off in form despite nearly £200 million worth of talent arriving over the summer transfer window. Ten Hag had weathered the storm earlier in the summer as Ineos completed their review of the club and then decided to back the former Ajax man and keep him on following the FA Cup win against Manchester City at Wembley. Ten Hag discussed his future with the club and they agreed to extend his contract by another year. In reaction to that news, he said, "We have found complete unity in our vision with reaching those goals, and we are all strongly committed to making that journey together." 3 days after finally becoming United's new sporting director, Dan Ashworth said that the club's review of last season reached a clear conclusion that Erik was the best partner for us to work with. However, those comments were caveated by acknowledging that the same review highlighted areas for improvement. He also stated their strengthened football leadership team was now in place, but Omar Barada did not officially start work as chief executive for another 9 days. 4 months later, when United Antony, multiple outlets are reporting that those two led the recruiting of Ruben Amorim as the club's new head coach. The Independent claims United did not interview the sporting coach during the summer, explaining that the July arrivals of Ashworth and Barada have been the key difference between then and now. It adds that the move was driven by this new leadership, with Sir Jim Ratcliffe giving his blessing due to how highly the coach is rated. The report aligns with what the Ineos owner said early last month about any decision regarding the future of Ten Hag falling with that footballing leadership team rather than himself. It's the management team that's running Manchester United that have to decide how we best run the team in many different respects, Ratcliffe said when pressed by BBC Sport. But that team that's running Manchester United has only been together since June or July. They weren't there in January, February, March or April. Omar, Dan, they only arrived in July. Ratcliffe reiterated, "They've only been there, you can count it in weeks almost, and they've not been there a long time, so they need to take stock and make some sensible decisions." He also acknowledged, "At the end of the day, it's not my call. The comments perfectly explain why Amorim wasn't approached over the summer," and hint it's now Barada and Ashworth who are making the big footballing decisions at Old Trafford.